Hello, everyone. Welcome to the BBELT 2025. We are honored to be here, and we are thankful to the British Council for giving us the opportunity to share our presentation with you. The presentation is called Embracing Diversity by Implementing a Universal Embracing Diversity by Implementing Universal Design for Learning. I'm going to present myself. I'm going to introduce myself. I'm Sandra Ojeda, and my co-workers are Sonia, Ulrich, and Araceli, Diez. Okay, to start with our presentation, we have to explain the agenda that we are going to describe the theoretical background of UDL. We are going to explain how to implement Universal Design for Learning in the classroom. And finally, we will give you some takeaways for you to think and reflect. As regards the theoretical background, the Center of Applied Special Technology, that is the name CAST, gave a concept and a description of the Universal Design for Learning that says that it is an educational framework based on research in the learning sciences that guides the design of learning environments that embrace variability, inclusion, minimize barriers, and develop learner agency for all to improve and optimize teaching and learning. We have to understand that UDL is more than just a set of strategies or guidelines to do something in the classroom. It's a set of principles and beliefs and values that guides or should guide the way we work or the way we plan our lessons. And for that, a UDL practitioner believes that students do not have to do or to learn everything at the same time, but all students can learn if barriers are moved. The main objective of UDL is to develop learner agency. And for that, teachers should provide certain instances in which students can develop these characteristics. To be purposeful, reflective, resourceful, authentic, and action-oriented. UDL is based on the principles of neuroscience, and the framework has three main principles that are related to areas or networks of how the brain processes information. So we have the affective networks that explain the why of learning, and they are related to the multiple means of engagement. We are going to describe each of them later. The other area that is recognition of networks, that is related to the what of learning, and it represented in the framework as multiple means of representation. And the strategic networks that explains the how of learning and is refers to in the multiple means of action and expression. Well, let's start with the first principle, the multiple means of engagement. What UDL explains is that we have to design options in the classroom to do these specific things: welcoming interests and students' identities, sustain effort and persistence, and also develop emotional capacity. As really, we are going to give an overview of the whole framework, but we're going to focus on some specific issues. For example, how to sustain effort and persistence, that in this case, it is advisable to explain clear and achievable goals at the beginning of the lesson, optimize, challenge, and support, try to make students collaborate and learn collectively, promote, this is very important because it's associated to the affective network, that is promote a sense of belonging and community. Also, you have to promote autonomy, try to implement many games so that you can nurture joy, that is related to welcoming interests and identities from students. And in that area also, you should minimize bias or threats, distractions, discrimination, etc. As regards emotion capacity, it is advisable to recognize expectations, beliefs, and students' motivations, cultivate empathy to students and promote it, and also develop the self-awareness of students. Now, Sonia will explain the multiple means of representation.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Thank you, Sandra. So, as Sandra was telling you before, UDL is based on neuroscientific principles, and the one that we are talking about right now has to do with the word of learning, which has to do with recognition. In order to make it easier for our students to learn and to lower barriers when it has to do with learning, we need to design for different options that allow for perception, for language and symbols, and also for building knowledge. So when we take into account the design of options for perception, what we want to do is to provide different opportunities to customize, to change the display of information. So, as you probably know, learners differ in the ways in which they perceive and make meaning of information. So we want to provide sources that can be adapted and changed depending on learners' needs. Also, we need to use accessible materials to provide for these adjustments and to support multiple ways to perceive for information. Another way in which we can make sure that students can recognize information has to do with making language and symbols clear. That means clarifying vocabulary, symbols, and language structures, making sure that we are all speaking the same language in the classroom. So we want to make sure that our students know what is it that we are telling them and asking them to do. Another way to do this is to construct meaning from words, from symbols and numbers by using different representations. Also using translations, descriptions, movements, and images. All of this has to do with varying, yes, the income that students are provided with. And finally, we go to building knowledge. The way in which this helps students recognize information has to do with connecting what they previously know, yes, to the meaning that we want to learn together with them. So building connections to prior knowledge is really important. Also highlighting the way in which patterns, features, or key ideas are in the texts that we present, for example, or information, so that we can help them to transfer this new information to what they already know and to apply it to new contexts. Now, Araceli is going to tell you about the third aspect or principle that is connected to UDL.
Yes, and the multiple means of action and expression has to do with strategic networks, that is to say, the how of learning, yes? So we know that learners differ in the ways they navigate a learning environment, approach the learning process, and express what they know, yes? And for this reason, it is essential to design for and honor these different forms of action and expressions, and we can do this by designing options for interaction, expression and communication, and strategy development. So now we are going to see what each of them makes reference to. Well, as regards interaction, we need to remember that it's important to design materials and physical environments that support and value the interaction, needs, and preferences of every single learner. How can we do this? Well, we can vary and honor the methods for response, navigation, and movement, because our students have to interact with, let's say, tools and environments that make learning physically accessible for all of them. We can also optimize access to materials and assistive and accessible technologies and tools so that we can open doors to learning with accessible devices for our students. When it comes to expression and communication, well, we know that it is important to provide multiple modalities for expression in order to reduce communication barriers and support our learners to express the knowledge, their ideas, and opinions. So we can do this by using multiple media for communication so that our students can express what they have learned in flexible and different ways. We can also use multiple tools for constructions, composition, and creativities so that our learners are able to share their thoughts and ideas using these tools that complement the learning goal. Yes. We can also build fluencies with graduated support for practice and performance so that our students can apply and gradually release, let's say, little by little, they can apply what they have learned, and we are there to support their learning agency. Last but not least, we can address biases related to modes of expression and communication so that we can honor a wide variety of forms of communication. When it comes to strategy development, this has to do with the capacity to act skillfully or to demonstrate the executive functions. So, how can we do this? Well, first of all, we have to set meaningful goals that, we can practice setting challenging and authentic goals that we can, in a way, reach. We can anticipate and plan for challenges so we can formulate reasonable plans for reaching our goals. We can organize information and resources so we can use flexible tools and processes to do this. We can enhance capacity for monitoring progress. This is really important. We have to analyze growth and over time, and also see how to build from it. Yes. Last but not least, we have to challenge exclusionary practice, which is also essential. So we have to work toward building more inclusive spaces and systems for our students to feel comfortable. This is really important. So now we're going to show you how we can put into practice this theory, let's say, in our classroom. So Sandra now will start talking about how we can implement UDL in a learning environment.
Okay, so let's start with the affective networks. That is a way of learning. And let's refresh a bit and remember that these networks process information and help students regulate emotions. And that influences why we are motivated or engaged in learning. So, how can we engage or motivate our students? Well, you can do these kinds of activities that, for example, share, as I mentioned before, share clear goals at the beginning of the lesson so students have a set of plan and they know where they're heading. Use activators like KWL charts or think, pair, and share activities, Doodle or Google. Invite students to choose their own topic for an assignment or project. Or if you give them a certain sequence of activities, you can give them their freedom to decide which activity to start with first so that they develop certain autonomy. It is also important to incorporate authentic activities that reflect a real world situation so that they see that they are learning and they will be able to apply that learning in reality. It is better to connect new content to students' backgrounds and experiences so that this scaffolding is better or prepares students better for learning. Create opportunities for peer interaction and collaboration because they need to develop this sense of belonging and awareness of themselves, and provide feedback that emphasizes their effort and process so that you have to keep records of their development in the learning process. And Sonia will go on with the following ideas.
Thank you. Okay, so how do we take into account the recognition network, which is related to the word of learning? Well, as we said before, we need to present in a variety of ways in order to support understanding, because what we want as teachers is for our students to become resourceful and knowledgeable. So some ways to do this have to do with the following. First of all, we want to offer information through different modalities, and this has to do with the different sources of information. Yeah, so nowadays we have technology in favor of us, and we can use adjustable text. We can present through slides. We can use videos or different audible resources. Apart from that, we need to allow for adjustability by the user. So if there's a chance to offer our students the possibility of adjusting the material to their own preferences, such as changing sources, colors, and it is something that we can do in order to make their understanding of a subject much easier. Apart from that, we can offer different perspectives in the form of different textbooks, authors. Nowadays, we can use a lot of authentic material, such as videos, podcasts. Um, Also, we can use captions while we are displaying video, which helps mainly when we have students who have hearing disabilities. Apart from that, we can enlarge the access to information through the use of hyperlinks, maybe with definitions if we're working on vocabulary, for example, or videos that contain more information on the subject that we are studying. We can also offer text-to-speech software if that is a possibility. Depending on the access to technology that we have, that this may happen in the classroom, or we could use it as a support material for students when they are studying on their own. And finally, it's a good idea also to provide organizers in order to guide the way in which our students process information. So all of this contributes to the way in which our students can recognize information presented. Now, Araceli will continue with the following.
So when it comes to the how of learning, that is to say the strategic networks, we can implement them in our classroom, first of all, by varying assessment strategies. So we can give our students a variety of assessments, not only the same ones. For instance, we can give them a quiz or an oral presentation or a written exam and so on. Also, we need to allow skills demonstration, and we can do this by asking our students to role play a particular situation or to participate in a debate or in discussions so that they can express their ideas in different ways. In addition to this, we have to give our students a variety of question types. That is to say, we don't have to give them always the same, as the girls already said. For instance, we can give them multiple choice activities, matching, short answers, fill in the blanks, or label activities, so that they are provided with a variety of exercises. Also, we can assess various ways of understanding, for example, to see if our students remember or comprehend something, or we can ask our students to analyze a particular topic or to apply what they have learned in a particular way. We can also ask them to evaluate something or to create something using the information or the knowledge they already have. We can also facilitate participation, which is essential in this part of expression. We can, for example, create discussion boards, or we can ask our students to write and create their own podcasts based on the topics they are interested in. We can ask them to write the personal blogs about anything. We can ask them to create polls, to give their peer feedback and to obtain feedback from the peers as well, and so on. Last but not least, we can give our students choice of assignment format that has to do with what Sandra said about helping them to become more autonomous in the learning process because they can make choices. They can also choose, for instance, the due date on which they will have the test or the topics they will be evaluated on, and so on. So, now it's time to reflect upon everything we have discussed. And we have here a quote that we like that says, small changes make big impacts. We know that you have probably heard about some of these things we have previously discussed, and that it's a lot of information. But the idea is to start implementing this little by little, step by step. So we have a question for you so that you can start putting this into practice this week with a group of students. And it says, what is one small change you can make? Yes. And now, Sonia, will read something very interesting for you.
Yes, we'd like to share with you some final reflections that are related to this presentation we wanted to share with you today. We should venture out of our comfort zone and reflect on our pedagogy, observe a classroom from a different perspective and through a wider lens. We may experience vulnerability and discomfort, but it's part of the process. Thinking out of the box is necessary step towards the shift of paradigm and the embracing of an inclusive pedagogy. Probably you are doing already a lot related to this, but small changes are really necessary in order to continue improving our classrooms. So, have you got any questions? Thank you very much for listening to our presentation.